An incomparable battle had come to a close. However, it had left behind a seriously damaged Central Plains. The original prosperity had vanished. Additionally, the entire Central Plains had been split into two. A hundreds of thousand feet large deep abyss had split it into two sections. This hundreds of thousands of feet huge deep abyss would be named the 2D abyss in the future. No one was able to forget the earth-shaking battle that day. The Central Plains had thus declined in prosperity. Fortunately, the disaster had also come to a halt. The decisive battle had naturally ended with the Alliance army being victorious following Han Tiandi being sealed. Although many in the Han clan had become much stronger after Han Tiandi advanced into the Dodi, most of them had been used by Han Tiandi as sacrifices to the Bloodblade before they could display this strength. The remaining people were a little desolate, faced with being chased by the Alliance army. They did not put up much resistance before surrendering. Soon after the big battle came to end, the Alliance army invaded the Han realm for the first time. However, the expected flourishing scene did not appear. After entering the Han realm, all they could see was bright redness. The entire space was filled with death. There was hardly any trace of people. The Alliance army discovered 100,000 feet large blood pool at the middle of the Han realm. The blood inside was incomparably viscous. Densely packed corpses and bones were present in the blood pool. Only after seeing this did the Alliance army understood why the Han realm was so empty. This was because the people here seemed to have been thrown into this blood pool. Han Tiandi had indeed sacrificed everything to achieve his aim. This type of person caused one's heart to be chilled and terrified. Everyone felt that it was lucky that someone was finally able to subdue such a lunatic. Some of the remaining people inside the hub realm were also brought away. After which, Gu Yuan and the rest joined hands to completely destroy this old hideout of the hub clan. From that moment forth, the so-called Han clan would cease to exist on the Central Plains. Amongst the 8 ancient clans, only the Gu clan, Yin clan, and Lei clan still existed. Oh, of course one must not forget the Xiao clan, whose Dodi bloodline had been once again activated because of Xiao Yan progressing into the Dodi class. The so-called Dodi bloodline benefited those whose blood was most closely related to Xiao Yan the most. The most obvious effect was naturally that felt by Xiao Yan's daughter Xiao Xiao. She had directly soared violently towards the 8-star Doshin class the moment Xiao Yan reached the Dodi class. That speed caused one to be giddy simply from looking at it. Although Xiao Xiao had excellent talent, this talent had yet to be completely revealed when she had directly leaped into becoming a top expert on the Doqi continent. This situation caused people like Lei Ying and Yin Jin, who had trained for thousands of years, to have an impulse to throw up blood. Was this the benefit that the first generation of the Dodi bloodline enjoyed? The Dodi bloodline was such an abnormal and perverse thing. Otherwise, how would it be possible to rely on one's strength to revitalize the entire clan? One could imagine that the entire Xiao clan would completely enjoy the benefit brought about by the Dodi bloodline. Their strength would end up soaring greatly in the future. At that time, it was only a matter of time before they returned to the powerful era back then. The Alliance army was naturally disbanded after the big war ended. Unless there was some unique situation, it would be extremely difficult for such a terrifyingly big war to occur on the Doqi continent in the future. This was because the current continent had an ultimate expert maintaining the balance. Flamedi Xiao Yan, a name which had resounded throughout every corner of the Doqi continent and worshipped by countless number of people. In the hearts of many, it was a divine god-like existence. He guarded the Doqi continent. The Alliance army was disbanded. However, the Sky Mansion Alliance still existed. Moreover, the current alliance was no longer separated into various factions and sections. At this moment, they clearly understood that being able to exist in this alliance was an incomparably glorious matter. That glory originated from the person who stood at the peak of the Do Chi continent. 2 years had passed since that earth-shaking big battle. The Central Plains once again became prosperous. Many sects and factions appeared like shoots after a rain. This caused the Central Plains to once again flourish. Of course, the Sky Mansion Alliance did not intervene in this. They retained their supreme position and quietly observed the development and changes on the Central Plains. There was naturally no faction that dared to provoke this unquestionable overlord of the Central Plains. With the help of the strength of the heavenly flame, Xiao Yan had merely used 2 months to once again refine a body after suffering the injury from the battle with Han Tiandi. Fortunately, no sequela remained. During these 2 years, Xiao Yan, Sun Er, and Kai Lin organized an unusually grand wedding. That wedding was witnessed by the world and countless individuals. This was also the promise that Xiao Yan had once given the 2 women. Soon after the wedding, Xiao Yan had once again returned the position of the chief of the Sky Mansion Alliance to Yao Lao. His reason was that the current Sky Mansion Alliance no longer needed to be supported by him. Yao Lao was helpless in the face of this action of Xiao Yan. He was aware that this little fellow was planning on being a hands-off boss. However, he involuntarily felt some heartache the moment he thought of the burden Xiao Yan had to carry all these years. Therefore, he could only once again take over as the chief of the alliance and help Xiao Yan carry this burden. Xiao Yan only left in a leisure and carefree manner after being relieved of this burden. He could truly be carefree in this world. Time flowed by. Spring passed and autumn came. Over a year quietly passed. 3 figures sat within a pavilion around 5 kilometers from Bailey City in the eastern part of the Central Plains. They lifted their eyes and appeared slightly excited. Lu Qing, will he come? A gray-clothed man with a somewhat sharp expression sat in the pavilion. He licked his mouth and asked, Lin Yin, it has been so many years, but you are still so impatient. A green-clothed man by the side smiled faintly and spoke in a warm and refined fashion. Lin Xiaoya, I heard that you have established a gang in the Clear Sky City. The tall, burly Lu Qing laughed. He was currently the person in charge of the Lu clan. There was quite a great mighty aura on his brow. I'm merely playing around. Lin Xiaoya laughed. It isn't anything remarkable. Compared to that fellow, it isn't even worth a thread of hair. Haha, Lin Xiaoya, this doesn't appear like something you will say. A familiar laughter sounded within the pavilion just after Lin Xiaoya spoke. Soon after, a figure appeared within the pavilion without warning. The figure was in black clothes. It was Xiao Yan. Haha, you have finally arrived. A joy surged onto the faces of the trio after they saw Xiao Yan appeared. They quickly stepped forward. Each of them threw a punch on the chest of the figure. I have actually punched the flame D. This is damn grand. Lin Yin laughed out loud. Xiao Yan laughed in a relaxed manner after seeing these good friends whom he had been separated from for years. He grabbed with his hand. A couple of wine pots appeared in his hand. Stop uttering any unnecessary words. We will not return until we are drunk. Good. I will accompany you today. The 3 of them laughed out loud. They unceremoniously received the wine pot, lifted their heads, and poured the wine into their mouths. The 4 drank happily within the pavilion. Their laughter appeared extremely free and unrestrained as it spread within the pavilion. The moon climbed across the sky. Lin Yin and Lu Qing were completely drunk. They lay on the ground without concern for their image. None of them had used Do Chi to block the alcohol. They wanted to greatly enjoy being drunk. Where do you plan to go to next? Lin Xiaoya's face was somewhat red as he looked at Xiao Yan and laughed. I have held out for so long and have become a little tired, Xiao Yan laughed. He lifted his head and looked at the bright light. I wish to return to the Jiama Empire. You can head to the Sky Mansion Alliance if you have any problems in the future. I have already talked to them. Haha, this background is really a little shocking. It seems that I have really made the right choice in heading to the Jiama Empire with you back then. The Flower Sect. Due to the Alliance having been completely assimilated, the current Flower Sect had also completely merged into the Alliance. However, some of the elders of the Flower Sect still like to remain in this quiet place. An elegant figure was standing on a back mountain in the Flower Sect. Her moon-white robe outlined her enchanting curves, causing her to appear extremely alluring. Teacher, a pale blue-clothed lady standing behind the figure softly cried out. Yinran, is there something? The white-dressed woman turned her head and revealed a pretty face containing an elegant appearance. She was Yun. Naoma Yinran sighed in her heart upon seeing this pretty face that was filled with charm. There were many renowned experts on the Do-Chi continent and the leaders of various factions expressing their love for Yun. Unfortunately, none of them managed to make any progress. Her heart was clearly aware that it was extremely difficult for the figure within Yun's heart to disappear. This was even though that figure is already married. Xiao Yan has delivered a message, Nalan Yinran softly said. Yun, who had been as calm as water, suddenly turned around after Nalan Yinran's words sounded. This reaction caused the latter to once again smile bitterly. What? Yun's voice had involuntarily trembled slightly. He asked if you were willing to return to the Jiama Empire. Nalan Yinran smiled slightly. Her smile was a little sour. Yun was startled. The back of her teeth bit her lips tightly. Those pretty eyes of hers suddenly became a little moist. There was a place there that she had greatly missed. That place was not the misty cloud mountain. Instead, it was the magical beast mountain range. Jiama Empire, Qingshan Town. The current Qingshan Town was undoubtedly a lot more bustling compared to back then. With the help of the magical beast mountain range terrain, an increasing number of mercenaries began to set up camp here. The reason for doing this was not only because it was easier to enter the magical beast mountain range, but it was also because there was a clinic in Qingshan Town. The clinic was not large. However, as long as one still had a breath remaining, it was possible for it to allow one to exit in a lively manner. This place was also the most respected place of everyone in the Qingshan Town. The area in front of the clinic was always filled with a squeezing crowd. Some of them were injured mercenaries, while others were the wounded being hurriedly transported over from other places. However, there was an ironclad rule in this place. One could only take a number and queue in this place, regardless of how great one's status was. Of course, this somewhat arrogant rule had initially been met with many cold laughter and disdain. However, after an expert Do Huang, who broke the rule, began to melt in front of everyone's eyes in an inexplicable manner, everyone finally understood just what kind of terrifying techniques the white-dressed lady, who appeared extremely kind and innocent, had. Since that day onward, there was no one who dared to disregard the rules of this place. There was a simple, clean, and orderly wooden table within the clinic. Behind the wooden table seated quiet a white-dressed lady. Sunlight scattered in from the roof and shone onto her face, which had a gentle smile. This beautiful scene caused the injured person seated in front of her to be stunned. Boil the medicine into liquid after you return and place it on your wound. The white-clothed lady smiled gently. She placed the bag of medicine gently on the table. Her black hair poured down like a waterfall, causing her to appear extremely pure and alluring. That demeanor caused those people with bloody aura over them caused them to feel a little ashamed. The injured person took the bag of medicine and left in a distracted fashion. His mind continued to reveal that warm smile. Such a lady was so gentle. Just looking at her caused all the irritation in his heart to diminish. The person queuing at the back immediately rejoiced after the injured person in front had left. However, he was just about to step forward when a figure suddenly walked past him from the side and sat down on the chair before him. "You are seeking death." Everyone were stunned for a moment after seeing that there was actually someone cutting queue, after which all of them became furious. They looked at that figure with a murderous aura. Was this fellow trying to commit suicide by finding trouble here? "Please queue up." The white-clothed lady shifted her body. She did not even lift her head as she arranged the medicine at the side. Her voice was soft and gentle, appearing like the spring breeze. Many people behind quietly laughed coldly after seeing this reaction of hers. This fellow was going to be out of luck if he did not leave. However, that person, who was sitting on the chair like a rogue, suddenly laughed while they were all mocking coldly. "Given our good relationship, I think there is no need to queue, right? This bastard, he actually dares to tease her?" Everyone were stunned after hearing these words, which seemed to be taking advantage of her. Was this fellow really an idiot? Did he really think that this seemingly weak lady was an ordinary woman? Many pairs of eyes began to contain some pity as they stared at the figure. Some people even sighed softly and shook their heads. Of course, there were naturally many people whose eyes were filled with anger because this person had offended the untouchable fairy in their hearts. While these people were prepared to see a tragedy happen, however, the hands of that white-clothed lady, who had shifted her head to arrange her medicine, suddenly trembled. She was startled for a moment before her pretty face was hurriedly turned. Immediately, a smiling, familiar face appeared in her eyes. The back of her teeth gently bit on her red lips. "Aren't you afraid of being lonely by leaving alone?" The black-clothed man laughed softly. His words caused the furious people behind to be suddenly startled. By the time they recovered, however, this white-clothed lady's voice had sounded in a saucy fashion. It caused everyone to become stunned, appearing as though they had been struck by thunder. "You are unwilling to accompany me, so I can only leave by myself." The black-clothed man rubbed his head. He looked at those somewhat dim, intelligent eyes of the white-clothed lady. After smiling bitterly for a moment, he finally asked, "What about coming with me to live in Wu-Tang City?" The white-clothed lady covered her mouth and laughed softly. There was a red moisture appearing in her pretty eyes. Her lips contained a warm and gentle arc. Everyone who were queuing felt their hearts shatter after seeing this reaction of hers. They immediately fell to despair. Jiama Empire capital, Jiama Sacred City. Today was considered an important day for the Jianan Empire, and even the entire northwestern region. This was because the Yin Alliance biennial auction would be held in the Jiama Sacred City. The auction was extremely grand. The items being auctioned were also at the peak level. Each time the auction was held, it would not only attract various factions and experts from the northwestern region, but even those from the other regions would come after hearing about it. The location of the auction was the middle of the Jiaman Sacred City. That place was where the headquarters of the Miter clan was located. Densely packed human figures filled the area under the tall 1,000-feet large crystal ceiling. The fiery hot atmosphere had kept the auction in a high atmosphere. Of course, the reason for this heated atmosphere was not completely because of the auctioned items. It was also very much related to a person. That was a bewitching lady who in a red cheongsam. The fitting dress exposed her voluminous matured curves in an extremely vivid fashion. Her every frown and smile revealed a matured aura. Of course, although those seated had some desire towards the tempting woman on the stage, all of them understood that this lady was not some beautiful flower vase. A significant reason that the Yin Alliance was able to become so powerful in the northwestern region was because of her management methods. The properties under her spread across the entire northwestern continent. Moreover, her information network was also able to clearly investigate everything one did. Although this woman did not have great talent when it came to training and had only reached the Do Huang class by relying on medicinal pills, there were countless of elite Do Zongs under her who would risk their lives to work for her, who would dare describe her as a flower vase, given this ability of hers. This woman had a special nickname in the northwestern region, Golden Female Emperor. Additionally, her name was Mitre Yafei. Yafei wore a lazy expression as she stood on the auction stage and looked at the people who had paid a price many times the value of the object to purchase it. She involuntarily laughed softly and shook her head. Immediately, she took out a scroll containing an ancient aura from her storage ring. Her numbing voice was filled with an endless enchantment. Tian class low-level Chi method thunder skill. Starting bid, 3 billion. Her words immediately stirred some commotion in the auction. The eyes of many became fiery hot. However, no one knew if this heat was because of the scroll or the person. However, a Tian class low-level Chi method clearly had a great weight in this place. Hence, many sects and factions were eager to obtain it and showed signs of being about to fight for it. 3 billion. Can it be a little cheaper? However, the bidding was about to start when a laughter suddenly sounded from nowhere. Everyone were stunned. They involuntarily laughed out loud. Who was so stupid? Did he think that this was a marketplace? Trying to bargain? Many pairs of eyes followed the voice and shifted. Finally, they paused at the front row. A black, clothed young man had appeared on the originally empty chair at some unknown moment. Yafei on the stage was also startled because of the voice that suddenly sounded. Her pretty eyes turned towards the chair. The extremely valuable Tian class low-level Chi method let out a bam sound as it fell onto the ground after his eyes looked at the smiling familiar face. 3 billion with one person added in. Will this do? The black-clothed young man looked at this extreme temptation, who had become even more matured compared to back then, and laughed. The expressions of many sunk after these words sounded. Some of the guards in the auction had already swiftly surrounded the person while wearing gloomy faces, after which they moved closer to the black-clothed young man. They were certain that this person was here to create trouble. However, just as everyone were prepared to watch a fun show, Yafei on the stage looked at the clear black eyes comparable to back then. A moment later, she gently bit her red lips. A rare, bewitching, enchanting smile surfaced on her face. I can consider it. Her voice reverberated throughout the auction ground, after which the originally boiling auction ground became completely silent. Those guards had also halted their footsteps. Their faces were dull. Time flies. It would not stop for anyone. Without realizing it, over a decade had passed since the 2D battle back then. During these decade-plus time, many new geniuses had appeared on the Do Chi continent. There was a continuous stream of new experts showing their edge, adding some excitement to this continent. Flame D. Xiao Yan had completely faded from everyone's sight during this decade-plus time. However, the various legends about him continued to spread. They had become increasingly exaggerated as they passed on from one person to the next. This caused him to be greatly respected. Jiamai Empire, Wu-Tang City. Wu-Tang City was a holy site in the eyes of many citizens within the Jiamai Empire. This was because that place was the headquarters of the Xiao clan. The Xiao clan had produced countless of experts during these years. There were hardly any group that could match it even in the entire Do Chi continent. There was a little child laughter vaguely being emitted from a manor that stood at the middle of Wu-Tang City. If one's sight leaped over the tall wall, one would see a few children rolling and playing around within the courtyard. Their laughter sounded continuously. A young man placed his hands like a pillow behind his head as he sat on a stone chair in the courtyard. There was a grass in his mouth. His eyes were smiling as he enjoyed the warm sunlight. Beside the young man was a lady in pale green clothes. Her long, delicate hand was skillfully cutting a fruit, after which she gently placed it into the young man's mouth. The lady was about to stand up after doing this when an arm hugged her delicate, narrow waist. She was pulled into his embrace while emitting a lovely cry, after which the man ruthlessly killed on the lady's face, causing it to turn bright red. Lin and the rest are still present. The green-clothed lady chided in a lovely and embarrassed manner. It is fine if they watch. We are already an old couple. Xiao Yan curled his mouth and laughed. Father, you are bullying Mum again. I will tell Kai Lin, Mum. A dignified and somewhat cute boy suddenly appeared after Xiao Yan's voice sounded. Both of his hands were placed on his waist as he cried out loud. Little brat, you actually dare threaten your father. Go to one corner and play. Xiao Yan rolled his eyes. He randomly waved his hand, and a gentle breeze blew. Seeing this, the boy's body immediately emitted an extremely powerful Do-Chi light pillar. Unfortunately, he was still being blown away when the breeze blew over. Finally, he landed gently onto the ground. Sun Er involuntarily knocked Xiao Yan and reprimanded upon seeing this. Xiao Yan smiled. He lifted both of his eyes and looked at the sky. The smile on his face slowly disappeared as he softly said, I have some strange feeling during this period of time. What is it? Sun Er asked in a startled voice. Sun Er, do you know why the elite Do-Di on the Do-Chi continent all eventually disappeared? Xiao Yan asked. Why? Xiao Yan returned the question in a slightly surprised manner after hearing this. Perhaps they had left this Do-Chi continent. A faint light flickered within Xiao Yan's eyes as he softly said, It can't be right. That feeling is becoming increasingly intense. And at the very most half a year, I will perhaps have an answer. Xiao Yan hugged Sun Er and said. Sun Er nodded slightly after hearing this. Her arms, which were entwined around Xiao Yan's waist, had unknowingly increased its strength. Half a year passed by in the blink of an eye. There was a towering stone tower at the headquarters of the Sky Mansion Alliance in the Central Plains / There were countless number of experts suspended in the air around the stone tower. Their eyes contained a fiery heat as they looked at the top of the stone tower. A black-clothed young man was sitting quietly at that spot / This was the first time that they had seen this legendary person in a decade. Flimdi, Xiao Yan, do you think that Xiao Yan is speaking the truth? Zhu Kuan looked at Xiao Yan before turning his head and asked Gu Yuan at the side. I don't know either. However, it seems that this is the only way to explain why the elite Do-Di on this Do-Chi continent has completely disappeared. It is not easy to kill a person at that level. Gu Yuan hesitated for a moment before replying. Tiu Kun Sayed. He had an extremely complicated feeling in his heart. If that was really the truth, they would really be considered the fog in the well. The calmness in the sky continued for half a day. Finally, it suddenly formed waves of mysterious fluctuation when the sun was about to set. Countless number of people held their breath. Their eyes were shocked as they watched this scene. The ripple became increasingly intense with the flow of time. At the end, Xiao Yan suddenly opened his eyes. A chi pillar that seemed to have penetrated through the world rose from the top of his head. Finally, it shot into the distant sky in front of all the eyes within the central plains. Hum. The ripple in the sky became extremely intense as this chi pillar shot out. A moment later, a tunnel that contained a faint light seemed to have broken through the restraint of the space in this plane and appeared in front of countless pairs of eyes. Xiao Yan abruptly stood up when the tunnel appeared. His expression was grave as he looked at this scene. He could sense a familiar feeling from within the tunnel. Origin Chi. It was the Origin Chi, which had already vanished from the Doqi continent. It was also the crucial thing to allow someone to advance into an elite Dodi. The entire world had become quiet at this moment. Zhu Kuan and Gu Yuan widened their mouths. A great storm rose within their hearts. When the tunnel had appeared, they could clearly sense that their strength, which had not progressed for 1,000 years, actually began to show signs of growing. Gulp! Their eyes were incomparably excited as they looked at the light tunnel. An extremely intense throbbing appeared from deep within their souls. This feeling told them that if they were to enter the tunnel, they would definitely experience a breakthrough in their strength. Oh! Xiao Yan let out a deep breath. Those dark black eyes, which had been calm for many years, once again revealed a fiery heat. His originally cooled blood seemed to have begun to boil at this moment. The end was indeed also a beginning. A smile was lifted on the corner of his mouth. Perhaps this would also be a different beginning. The Yendi for Part 1. Stay tuned for the Battle Through the Heavens Part 2.